So HP Baumeister, I'm with Fraunhofer. Fraunhofer is an organization, as I call it. It's not a regular company, in part because it's actually a not-for-profit organization, fairly large, about 22,000 employees worldwide, the lion's share of those in Germany. We are split up into what we call institutes in industry. In regular companies, you would call it a business unit, a division, something like this. And each institute is pretty independent and catering to very different markets, even to a degree, business models, technologies, etc.
And your business unit?
So I'm associated with a business unit called IIS. It stands for Institute for Integrated Circuits. And it's actually, I believe, the largest of the Fraunhofer institutes. I'm not sure I have the latest numbers, but maybe 1,500 employees in total. Many activities. Generically, I would say Fraunhofer is a very diverse organization in terms of those markets, technologies, etc. And that's also true for the institutes themselves. So even within an institute, you have a lot of diversity. So one small part of this institute, small meaning maybe 150, 200 people, are working on audio and multimedia and primarily codecs or codec-related stuff. So we, claim to have invented MP3. I think most people would acknowledge that. We were major contributors to AAC, and we continue to push the envelope. And because of the fact that we are a not-for-profit, all the revenue that comes in goes right back into R&D and into furthering the technology, which is true for all of the Fraunhofer institutes.
Okay, and you were telling me how many AAC and MP3s there are in this world?
Yeah, so today, and depending on exactly how you count it, of course, but there are well over 6 billion licenses each for AAC and MP3. So it's a very widely deployed technology and capability. MP3 obviously came out in the 90s, and it's still going strong, I should say. It's a de facto capability that you need in every device. I cannot think of any device that deals with audio that is not MP3 capable. And almost the same statement can be made nowadays for AAC, which was introduced in early 2000 time frame. Apple was maybe the first company who, in a major way, deployed AAC in a consumer electronics space and iTunes. But nowadays, same thing. Every device needs to handle AAC just the same.
Okay. And what's your expectations for what's going to happen in the near future? Like any thoughts about WebRTC?
So WebRTC, I think, is a very interesting, very attractive proposition to the market. For many reasons. Simplest reason, of course, is the fact that it's nice to be able to start a communication, a two-way communication, just from a browser. If that promise actually holds up and is true between all the browsers, etc., that's still an open question. But the concept, the idea, I think, is great. There are a number of issues with WebRTC as I see it and as we see it. One of the issues is the fact that, for whatever reason, there is some element of maybe religion is the right word. I don't know whether I have a better one in terms of which codec should be used. Let me focus on the audio side. On the video side, the controversy is actually maybe stronger. But maybe for the wrong reasons or for the right reasons, I don't know. But on the audio side, there's no question in my mind a communication codec needs to, a communication facility, it's not an application, WebRTC, it's a capability, I would call it, needs to support some kind of a baseline codec or codecs. And one of them needs to be G711, even though I'm not a fan of it, I don't like it, it's totally outdated, it's not even a codec in the classical sense. But it's a must. If you want to interoperate with anything, it's just like MP3 maybe on the streaming side. You need to support G711. So no question about that. The big question is about Opus. And Opus is it's a codec that came about in fairly strange ways. to start with, and continues to be, I would say, questionable in a number of ways. There are performance questions, but maybe at least as importantly for mass deployment anyhow. I'm not talking about niches, I'm talking large volume deployment by large companies. I would be very careful about the IPR situation. I would look at this very carefully, because you don't want to be stuck with using a codec that later on you're going to find out you're going to end up having to pay royalties anyhow. Now, yes, AAC, MP3, H.264, all those MPEG codecs, let's say, all of them are royalty-bearing codecs. Now, I would argue fundamentally there's nothing wrong with royalty-bearing anything, for the simple reason that that's how you get innovation into the system. If you have an economical incentive to do something about in this case, a codec, you're going to do it. Obviously, if there's a market need and all of this, but you need resources. And even the Opus development people, let's say, the vast majority of them got a salary and are getting a salary. So where's that coming from? Well, in the case of Mozilla, that salary is coming to, last time I checked, 85% from Google, because Mozilla is getting 85% of their, call it, revenue from Google. So it's not free, it's just subsidized by something else. And in our case, we are very upfront about it. Yes, we are, and by the way, we are not the only beneficiary of royalties for AAC, because there's 10, 15 major companies that have contributed to it and are part of the patent pool. So we get a small share of that. But whatever small share we get goes right back into innovation and into R&D, and we are upfront about it, and there's no subsidization by anything murky. And I don't mean that in a totally negative way, but it's not clear.
Clean.
It's clean. It's totally clean and upfront and straight. And so, I mean, yeah, I would like to get many things for free. I would like to get a laptop for free because it was subsidized by, what is it, HP, whatever, by something else, right? Yeah, it would be nice. But why be so hung up on codecs? I don't understand it. And besides, the industry has already voted. I mean, I said earlier, 6 billion devices each, and I don't know what the numbers are for H.264, MPEG-2, whatever, all those other MPEG video codecs, but it's very similar. They are the dominant codecs, despite the fact that there is a royalty component to them.
What about scaling for small companies? The big issue that I keep hearing is the small companies get nervous. So.
It is. For small companies, it is a concern. Maybe. Actually, the issue is probably more small software companies, because if they come up with a piece of software, application, whatever it may be, and they want to include a codec, at least on paper, and I'm not suggesting they shouldn't go by the book,
right.
But at least on paper, yes, they need a license, but there are actually ways around this, and that's maybe a not so well-known fact. So if I maybe loop back to WebRTC, for example, like I said, 6 billion devices are AAC licensed, 6 plus. And the AAC license is actually call it a bundle. There's actually different flavors to AAC. And so when you get the AAC license, you get actually a license to all those flavors of AAC, or the vast majority of them anyhow, including the communication flavors of AAC, called AAC LD for low delay, which is the older one, and the latest one, AAC ELD, and there's actually a even later one, ELD version 2. All of those are part of this license. And so if you use the codec that's already in the device, which is, for example, the case in Android devices, because we open sourced AAC, including AAC ELD, into Android, so it's part of Android. There's an agreement we have with Google. And the same is true for iOS, not in terms of open sourcing, because nothing in iOS is open source, to my knowledge. So those devices, for example, already have AAC ELD in this case, for example, built in. And so all you need to do as an app developer is use this codec that's native, the hardware manufacturer already paid the license, because usually that's where the license is being paid, and the software is already in the device, and in both cases, iOS, Android, as a result of an agreement we have with either company. So in that case, it's completely free, actually. So there are ways around it, and you just have to know, number one, what exactly the situation is, and number two, you have maybe do some little research. And we actually have some, call it white papers or application notes, and to help
Send me
people how
the
to
links
do
to
this.
that. I'll connect
Yeah,
with this
okay.
interview.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. I think you defended yourself admirably, young man.
Okay, thank you.